Welcome back to Making the Madness on YouTube. Uh, Breaking news, Roy Williams is retiring. So we're going to break down 5 candidates to replace Roy Williams at North Carolina.
The first candidate for the North Carolina job is Wes Miller, who played for Roy Williams at North Carolina. He transferred from James Madison, and he started at point guard for one of the national championship teams in 2005. He's been at UNC Greensboro for a decade, and he's taken them to two NCAA tournaments, two NITs, and made them a perennial contender in the Southern Conference every season. His connection to Roy Williams, his connection to the North Carolina program as a whole, makes him a legitimate candidate for the job. You know, he's only 38 years old, and he's had over a decade of coaching experience as a head coach. You won't find many guys around that age with the same amount of head coaching experience, so that instantly makes him a big-time candidate.
Yeah, absolutely. You have there the coaching experience, and then the North Carolina connection as well. He's a really, really good young head coach. And like with him, he's very young. You're gonna get him for a lot of years, so you're not getting. He's not gonna be like you could hire an older type coach and you might get 15, 20 years. You could legitimately get 40 years of Wes Miller.
Yeah, without a doubt. He is very young. And, at this point, I feel like the game's shifting towards a more younger head coaching style, which is part of the reason why Roy Williams ended up retiring, it sounds like. So maybe going with one of the younger guys that's a candidate who's been experienced as a head coach might be the way to go.
Absolutely. Our next candidate is Jared Haas out of Sanford. Haas was a coach or an assistant coach under Roy Williams for an extended period of time. He took the UAB job, and then he eventually worked his way into the Stanford job. Has not made an NCAA tournament, which is kind of the one area of concern if you are going to have one with him. But you have the UNC ties. He's a good head coach, good recruiter. So I think he's a solid option if you're looking for a replacement. I wouldn't put him at the top of the list. I'd still probably have Wes Miller over him, but he's certainly a very capable candidate.
Yeah, Jared Haas is definitely an interesting candidate because he is more familiar with Roy Williams, probably more than anybody that's going to be a candidate here, because he played for him at Kansas from 94 to 97, was an assistant on his staff at Kansas for 4 years, and then when Roy took the job at North Carolina, he took Haas with him, where he spent 9 more years with him before taking the UAB job, and then since then, obviously, he went to Stanford. He did take UAB to one NCAA tournament, but he hasn't been able to do that at Stanford. He's had some pretty solid teams in Palo Alto, but has never been able to take them to the tournament. He's another guy that's 46 years old. He's not super old. He's not super young either, but he's an experienced guy that knows the program, and there's no question that Roy Williams is going to have a big say in who gets to replace him. The athletic department and administration definitely owes him that at the very least for bringing them 3 national titles, to let him pick who the next head coach is. And I believe that Jared Haas is going to be a major part of that conversation.
Yeah, he'll certainly be on the short list of candidates.
Nate Oats is the next candidate for North Carolina. This is a name that's hot in coaching circles, and I think he ultimately might stay at Alabama, but if you're North Carolina, you have to make the call. He's one of the more up-and-coming coaches in the country. He had a great time at Buffalo, and he just took Alabama to the Sweet 16 in only his second season, had them as a 2 seed. They were incredible. He's now been to 4 NCAA tournaments, 3 with Buffalo, 1 with Alabama, and that's all in 6 years of becoming a head coach. So 4 NCAA tournaments in 6 seasons. He knows how to recruit, he knows how to get transfers, and he knows how to get players to buy into his system. And it's really worked at Alabama. There's no reason not to kick the tires on Nate Oats.
Yeah, and in terms of North Carolina, you're looking for kind of a younger player who's going to, or younger coach who's going to connect with the players, I think Nate Oats is as good as a candidate you can get with that. He's fun. He's very energetic, and yeah, I think just is a great coach to play under. Obviously, you have the fast-paced type of style you're going to play with him. You're going to see a lot of threes being shot. Maybe, the Carolina staple is offensive rebounding. Maybe that goes down, but from everything else, Nate Oats is a very good head coach. I would at least consider giving him a call and seeing if he's interested. Uh, and maybe the call goes well, the interview goes well, and they decide, hey, Nate Oats is our guy. So I would definitely call Nate Oats. Our next candidate is Eric Musselman out of Arkansas. Uh, he got into Nevada. It was kind of a bottom feeder program in the Mountain West at the time. Very quickly, he turned it into the perennial top team to beat in the Mountain West. Had that program at a Sweet 16, had that program in the top 5 of the AP poll in a very short time. And at Arkansas, 2 years in, he has taken them to the Elite Eight for the first time since the 1990s. So uh, Eric Musselman, certainly a fantastic coach. He's another coach. He's going to, play a fun style of basketball. So he's going to connect with the fans. He connects with the players very well. I think Eric Musselman, another very good head coaching candidate.
Yeah, Muss is definitely an interesting candidate. And look, he's not going to be an Arkansas lifer. I feel like that's pretty expected around the industry, that he's not going to spend the rest of his career in Fayetteville, Arkansas, because he's just been a guy that doesn't stay in places for a long time. Since 2000, he's had just about 10 jobs, ranging from NBA jobs, assistant jobs in the NBA, associate job at Arizona State and at LSU, before taking the Nevada job for five years and taking the Arkansas job now. Who can really blame him if North Carolina calls, which they certainly could if they decide to look outside of the in-house candidate. He's won everywhere he's been as a head coach in college basketball. He just took Arkansas to the Elite Eight where they lost to Baylor in his second season. He knows how to recruit at an extremely high level. He knows how to get transfers in, and he knows how to replace players. This day in college basketball, the transfer portal is going to continue being a huge thing. He's used that for a long time, but replacing guys on short notice is not an easy thing to do for a lot of coaches. You see Coach Cal do it. You saw Roy Williams do it at North Carolina. That's exactly what Eric Musselman could do. They lost Isaiah Joe pretty late in the cycle, and they somehow got better. That's just simply incredible that Eric Musselman was able to lose his best player, who said he was coming back and decided to leave very late in the cycle and still nearly made a Final Four.
Absolutely. He's a very good head coach. And, not someone I think that will be available for North Carolina if they want to make the move there. We'll see if they do, but certainly very good head coach.
The final candidate on our list here is Hubie Davis, former assistant or current assistant for North Carolina and former player. If you're a little older, you'll definitely recognize him from his playing days where he played at North Carolina from 1988 to 1982. So he's an alum. He had a great career at North Carolina. He was drafted by the Knicks and played in the NBA for a pretty long time. He worked at ESPN for a bit, and since 2012, he took an assistant job at North Carolina. He's always been kind of a guy that's been, is he one of the coaches in waiting? And he looks like he might be a candidate. He's definitely going to get an interview at the very least. He was the head coach of UNC's JV team, the only JV team that was in the ACC, according to Wikipedia. Did not know that until just now, but that's what it says on Wikipedia, so I'm sure it's true. And, he's experienced. He played in the NBA. He played at North Carolina. He's been an assistant at North Carolina. He knows what the fans like, and the fans would love this hire because he played there, and he knows the fan base very well. So I wouldn't be surprised if this was a legitimate candidate for the job.
Absolutely. I think Hubie Davis, very good candidate. The fans know him, they love him. Uh, longtime assistant under Roy Williams. Uh, I just think all around he checks every box. The one concern I would always have is I'm someone that would tend to favor trying to go outside, looking for candidates. I maybe look more towards a Wes Miller, Nate Oats, or an Eric Musselman. But in terms of someone in house, if you're kind of doing the Bo Ryan to Greg Gard type strategy, he's the guy. I think he's a very good head coach, North Carolina ties. So I would definitely consider Hubie Davis if I'm North Carolina. Well, that will wrap it up for this episode of Making the Madness. Uh, we'll be back on YouTube. The coaching carousel is big. The transfer portal is gigantic. So there's a lot of names just going all around. So we'll be back to cover it all.